So welcome everybody to the second day of the Living Norway 2020 colloquium. It's a great pleasure for us to welcome you to these more workshopy things that are going to happen today. First, we're going to have this educational workshop. And this is something that we have been discussing and developing a lot during the last few weeks and days, to be honest, thinking about what can we do and how can we talk about education in a way that is sort of useful and also pointing forward in terms of open data and fair data management. And what became very clear yesterday was that this is a landscape that is changing extremely fast. So over just a few years, sort of the way we think about open data and data management and all these things have transformed quite dramatically. And of course, this is a challenge for us as researchers, but then as educators, it's a different world. And we cannot sit around and wait until we have it all figured out in research and then start teaching it. We need to take this into education now, or actually sort of last year, 5 years ago, because these students that are going through their educations now, they will need to be up and running on all these fields when they are educated, or actually when they start in the workforce, or actually as they are studying. So this is what we're doing today. I'm going to have a short introduction, and after that we will be discussing and sharing and working in groups. And we also have a fantastic lineup of presenters who will present some little case studies in the middle of it. So I hope you look forward to all of this. So, but just a brief sort of recap from yesterday. It is very obvious that the open science universe is expanding and expanding very rapidly. And this is just one representation of this from some work that we did last year. And then we talked about all these different aspects that you have to open science. So of course you have open data, you have open source, and so on and so forth. And very much when we discuss open science, we're talking about open access publishing, which is a very, very small part of open science, which was nicely illustrated yesterday. And you have a lot of different sort of taxonomies of open science, and of course it's much more than what we showed on the previous slide. And so this is a huge list of different kinds of things that are both about different aspects of open science and all these different terms that comes into this. And open education isn't even mentioned here, and open, like we talked about yesterday, how openness in the science policy. There are so many things, so how do we? One thing is sort of getting to grips with all of this ourselves, but how do we implement it in education? We talked also yesterday about sort of fair principles, and from the educational point of view, if we want all of this to be happening in science. So in reality, both in science and in the science policy interface, we need people out there who have very, very complex skill sets. Luckily, we have tools and we have sort of frameworks and ways of thinking about, or we have sort of very powerful tools to make this transition and to make this change happen. And one of those tools that we use quite a lot is, of course, research-based education. And in education, when we're educating students in ecology and also in different other part subjects, there's a lot of things that they are learning in terms of science. They're learning how to formulate scientific questions. They're learning how to make sampling in science. There are so many things that we are teaching students. And sort of Sigrun Eliassen at the University of Bergen, she has summarized this very nicely in this figure that I just wanted to show you. Like, what is it that we are teaching research students? We're teaching them to think like scientists in different kinds of ways. We're teaching them to use tools and technologies like scientists. And we're teaching them to communicate like scientists. And what yesterday really illustrated for us is that all these things change when you start to think about how should we do this in a fair, open way. So all these aspects are impacted. So last year at the Living Norway colloquium, we were discussing sort of what kind of things can we do, what kind of things can students do to get some kind of experience with this. And so we summarized this towards the end of the colloquium last year, saying that, you know, students need new skill sets, like we talked about before, but there are also some other interesting opportunities here. Because in a fair open world, students can learn, and we can teach students by exposing them to real data. So instead of making up data that the students play with, they can actually play with or work with real data from the real world. We can also share the students' data, the data that they collect. And so the data that they are collecting during their coursework can actually be shared sort of with society. And of course, we should also share educational resources. So this is sort of aspects of open education, that education is open and that it's interfacing with the reality out there in science and society in very real ways. So what we're going to do, so this was just my very, very brief introduction to the theme and to what we're going to do today. And so what we're going to do during these 3 hours that we have, we're first going to have a quick sort of fot I bakken, as it's called in Norwegian, sort of taking stock of where are we now. And so partly, many of you have been answering the survey that we sent out, and they were trying to map out the fair open education landscape and also the research landscape. And I heard that the survey crashed for a number of you yesterday. I'm sorry about that, but those of you for whom it crashed will be getting an email and an opportunity to answer the survey anyway. Survey Exact, this tool that we use, has many features, and one of them is that it crashes occasionally. And other people also had problems with it yesterday. Sorry about that. We will now have a short session. So the mapping thing is already done. We will have a short session where we share experiences in open science education, and you will do this in groups. And then there will be some case studies. And there are some really nice, we have a really nice lineup of people who will be presenting these short case studies for us. We'll have a short discussion, and then we will have the last session of the day where we will be, or of the workshop, where we'll be talking more about the future. And so then we'll challenge you to make we have seen all these figures of the open science landscape, and we'll challenge you to make that figure from an educational perspective. So you can start spinning about that. Yeah, before we go into the detailed instructions about the workshop, I just wanted to have sort of a full disclosure. I did the same thing last year, so I just wanted to show. So these are my master's students through the years, and I just wanted to show you that, you know, things. There are some things that are rotten also in my kingdom, and so I started just to color these by seeing sort of how many of these people's data are actually sort of fair, open, and accessible to the world. How many of them could be salvaged, and how many of them are likely lost. And so there are quite a lot also in my world. There's quite a lot of really quite nice data, which I wish we could have shared with the world in a better way than we are doing. But it gives some hope here also, because this is also chronologically ordered from old to new, and there's a lot more red in the old world than there is now. So this sort of gives some hope, and I'm hoping that we can manage to color some more of these green. But anyway, so when we share experiences, you don't only have to share your successes, you can also share your failures. We all have them.